Latin American Advancement, the AFL-CIO. And the Yolo Justice Coalition is also represented here also.
What will you do to try to have an investigation underway?
Well, we believe that this is an issue that with the new State Attorney General, Kamala Harris, who is indicated as utilizing equal and smart justice, as she did in her inauguration. We're going to hold her accountable that equal justice pertains to its citizens and becoming victims. We also are firm believers in that we need to fight crime, we need to fight gangs, but you can't stereotype the Latino community as all being criminals and gangs and gang members when there's a gang injunction that has been perpetrated by the district attorney in order to elevate himself politically at the expense of the taxpayers, and having expended tens of millions of federal monies in order to prosecute people. In instances where we've had numerous cases where people were found innocent when he persisted and overzealously trying to prosecute people, in the end costing the taxpayers tens of millions of dollars in taxes and also federal taxes.
So the fact that there's not going to be a court trial, it's not going to sound
No. We believe this is a continuing problem with our district attorney in Yolo County, and we aim to hold him accountable, even if it means calling for an investigation of his office through the State Attorney General's office, and even maybe at the U.S. Attorney General's office, for instance, for the cases that are pending. The Luis Gutierrez case is a good example. In this case, the Navarro brothers, one of them, Ernesto, could have been one of the individuals who could have been killed like Luis Gutierrez, with the Yolo County Sheriff's Department case that is still an open case after almost 2 years. And that whole case, under the auspices of the district attorney, is subject to scrutiny as to what happened that relates to the culpability of the police officers in that case. Likewise in the Galvan case, where no one's concerned about the brutal beating of an individual who was charged with, other than having to look suspicious that he was sweating, that all of a sudden the police officer, because of the makeup of who he was, a Latino who spoke only Spanish, all of a sudden is subject to arrest, detention, and beating him severely. That is something that the community outcry had a lot to do with. We believe the district attorney all of a sudden issuing a statement yesterday that he's decided all of a sudden to not go forward and proceed against a fourth trial, costing the taxpayers of this county and the jurors to come back, like the lady said here. I had a hard time, based on what she's saying, to finding guilt and having the prosecutor prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the Galvan brothers were guilty of what? And that's the question that we have in our minds, that in our community, the DA is not listening to the community, has ignored the community, and has ignored what the community has been sending back, which were the peers of the jury from the community who said, you haven't been able to prove the case in the first place. Why isn't it that you didn't bring a case that you could prove it? And that's the real issue today with the overzealous nature of the district attorney, and where we have, as I mentioned, and we've mentioned in the last 2 years, numerous cases in where he's attempted to prosecute at the expense of a conviction rate and looking good in the eyes of the public.
Why do you think in this case he decided not to go through with the fourth?
I believe the public outcry. I think the public outcry was very clear and very evident to him that he was in a real poor position to move forward, knowing that this was going to open up real severe questions as to what really happened in this case, that it took him within 5 years, three court trials. 3 court trials, and almost at the last trial, a complete acquittal. So if they had a question from the very beginning, that should have been a red flag for the district attorney. But the district attorney hasn't paid heed to the will of the people. The will of the people is his application of equal justice. But in this case, some of us believe that this is selective prosecution of a community that is mostly of people of color. And we find that hard to believe that in a community such as Broderick, he has a gang injunction that he's implemented and he's orchestrated politically to his own benefit at the cost and expense of the Latino community.
That's right.
And in the Latino community, we believe as citizens, we also vote. And the bottom line is that we need a prosecutor who's going to protect the interests of the people who become victims, in this case, by the very people who are supposed to protect us and serve us, is the police at the municipal level and the sheriffs at the county level. Those are the serious concerns we have with who's being prosecuted in this case. Thank you. Before everybody leaves, we need to have you give us your names if this is your first time, okay? Nos dan los nombres antes que se vayan, okay?
Steven.